My name is Jamie, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 16, 2015. So yesterday I was at my home group, and we were doing our anniversary, and we had to write down like years, months, days, and I was like, oh, I'm not good at math. Let me go on my phone and find a robot to do this for me. And it was on the date, because yesterday was the 15th, so it was 9 years, what was it oh shit, now I don't remember. So many months and 30 days, or 6 months and 30 days. And I was like, oh wow, that's sick. I love that for me. I have a sponsee and I have a sponsor. I have a home group. And I have a service commitment in my home group, which is Big Boss Greeter. And my job is to actually assign greeters every 3 months for the whole year. And so that is my commitment. And this is a new commitment, and I got to name it. And I wanted to name it after Bowser from Mario. So if you hate it, you can come fight me after the meeting. My service commitment in Tricky Paw is I am the co-chair. Last year I was the chair. Young people stuff has been, so doing bidding, because we were a bid, we are now hosts. Bidding is the fun part of young people, and the reason being is that you are getting people to come join this committee, and the service positions that we have are business-like service positions. We had to get hotel contracts, so we were teaching newcomers how to speak professionally, dress professionally, act professionally in front of people in the everyday community, right? We had to get hotel contracts. We had to get a treasurer's report. We had to have notes done. I had to talk to area, intergroup. And in our area, we have multiple intergroups. I think we have 6 or I don't know. There's so many. I wasn't used to how many intergroups it was. So we had a lot of intergroups that we had to communicate with. So we were like a functioning machine, right? And we have to delegate. We have to communicate. So unity is extremely essential in our group. Keeping the traditions alive in the young people group is also extremely important, right? Principles before personalities. Otherwise, the group falls apart. I've had that experience. I've been in young people commitments, I don't know, going on 5 years now, something like that. I was doing it in Florida. So before I moved here 3 years ago, I was living in Florida. I lived in Florida since 2000, and I loved it. I got sober when I was 24 years old, and I didn't think that I had a problem drinking because I was a binge drinker, and I could go months without drinking. However, when I got sober, I realized the only reason I could go months without drinking was because I had addictions in other areas. And I'm not talking about drugs. I'm talking about exercise, eating, men, other things, right? Like that. My addictions were spread out in multiple areas that seemed like normal things, right? So for me, it felt like a mask. I was able to mask my alcoholism with other things, and it felt normal. Everyone I hung out with, they didn't necessarily drink like I did. Maybe a few of them did, but it was my family that drank like I did, right? So I come from an alcoholic home. We moved a lot when I was a kid. My dad was in the military for 20 years in the Army, and so we traveled a lot. I moved constantly. Florida was the only stable area that I moved to, and that's where I made friends. That's where I had some semblance of stability in an alcoholic home. I always drank, I say that because when we lived in Italy, my mom used to tell us that it was so cute that we would follow her around and take sips of her wine glass while she would be gardening in Italy all the time, and it was a normal thing for that, right? It was normal. And I remember even when we moved back to the States, and as I grew up, every summer, the cousins and my family, we would all meet at my grandparents' house in Tennessee, and I remember just sneaking into the house when everybody was outside and getting into my mom's box wine, and I would just tip my head under, take a few gulps, close it, and then run off. And I would do that all day, every day that I was there, and we were there for multiple weeks at a time, right? And so everybody was drinking at us. Later on, my cousin got sober too. He has a year less than I do. And I told him this story, and he was like, "You did that too?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we were both just walking around drunk. It was all no wonder we were always fighting each other. I definitely feel like I always knew that I felt different, right? And like I say that lightly because I don't think that I'm different than anybody else in this room in terms of how I felt, right? My story might be different, but I relate a lot to feelings because I'm a high bottom drunk. And that was kind of like how I had to process all this information that I was getting when I first came into the rooms. And I really struggled a lot with trying to find an identity. You really couldn't in like the hostile environment that I was living in. So in my couples therapy that I'm in now with my husband, right, is learning about attachment styles. And I'm an anxious and avoidant attachment style, meaning I'm constantly trying to predict other people's emotions and trying to navigate and, either try to please or avoid certain interactions that might cause me some sort of, anxiety or fear or whatever, right? So I have been like that my entire life because of the hostile environment that I was constantly in. And I can't say that it was hostile in terms of like my dad was, like physically abusive, or my mom was. No, like we got spanked, sure, but it was definitely very verbally and emotionally abusive, and when we were like that to each other, and we had very harsh and intense sarcasm. It aimed to really wound somebody else. We really shot a lot of low blows to each other, and we treated other people in our small circles, because you don't really get to keep friends when you act like such assholes to people, right? In our small circle of people that would hang out with us, that's how we treated other people. We had no respect for others. We were all very selfish and self-centered, and I was definitely one of those people. As I grew up, I would say like my first real, and I like to say like in high school, I was 14 years old. It was December 3rd. It was like a Saturday. I was hanging out with these people that I met in high school, and we went to a house party, and my first drinking spiritual experience, and I say drinking spiritual experience because it was the first time I drank and felt fucking normal. Like, I felt like I could talk to the boys that were at the party. I felt like I was pretty. I felt like I was cool. I felt confident. I felt smart. I felt just invincible. And for me, that was a spiritual experience. That was a relief. That was a release, a relief. That was just something that I was like, whew, I can let my shoulders sag slightly. They're not up here like this constantly. And so I really enjoyed drinking that night. However, I was carried home and violently vomiting on my friend's front lawn and did not remember waking up the next day and what happened. So I did black out. But that's not the point. I kept drinking, even though I was like, I'm not drinking again. It's so bad. I feel like shit. And I drank again, and I worked. My dad kind of gave me the option of like, you can either do sports or you can go get a job. And I was like, I'm getting a fucking job. I want money, and I want to drive a car and get the fuck out of this house. So I got a part-time job, so I would go every day after school and work and make money, and I would be the one paying for all the alcohol every weekend that, we would party, because the friends I made, they were lower income family homes, and like their parents were never fucking home, and we could do whatever we wanted, right? So that's who I hung out with in high school. And whenever I burned bridges, because I always burn bridges, is I would find another friend group that was partying and having fun. But I would find a friend group that was maybe less intense, right? Like, I'd be like, oh, I need a detox from such toxic people. I was a toxic person. I was the one causing the drama. I was the one making the trouble in the social circles. However, in my mind, it was everybody else. That was my perspective, because I'm the victim, and it's all about me, and that's how I lived my life, right? I had a really terrible eating disorder. I was very codependent. I relied heavily on either negative or positive attraction from men, and women, but more men than anything. But I really relied on other people to tell me how I felt and who I was and what I wanted to do in my life and where I wanted to go. Even if I thought it was my idea, it was usually because I knew someone else wanted to do it. And I constantly felt like I had no control. I always felt like I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't feel safe constantly. Because even when I did go home and that was my safe place, I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel comfortable being there. I always felt like I had to be on. And I was tired, I was always tired. And it wasn't the lack of sleep. It was the fact that I was constantly emotionally on and gauging what other people were going to do. That's exhausting, being in survival mode, in a constant state of survival. And that's how I felt most of my life. I continued to work. I continued to jump around friend groups. I continued to drink. I ended up getting... I ended up kind of being dry for a year when I met my high school sweetheart. And then, at the end of senior year, I was like, look, bro, I'm 18 now. I'm going to college. I'm going to date college guys. You're nobody to me. And I pretty much was like, peace out. And I fucking dipped out. And I of course, I'm codependent, and I went crawling back many, many times because of my insecurities, but I burned that bridge, right? I burned that bridge, and I continued doing what I wanted to do, which was drink and cope with these feelings that I didn't know how to handle because I didn't have tools to emotionally handle all of these big feelings of, especially fear. I think that's what my resentments list was mostly of, was fear. Fear, selfishness, self-centeredness, for sure, constantly. And so by the time I did finally turn 21, it didn't really mean anything to me because I was already drinking. I had a fake ID. I could get anywhere, go anywhere, drink anything I wanted. By the time I did finally meet my husband today, he was 6 months sober, and I was not sober. I was looking for a math tutor on Craigslist, and yeah, that's where I emotionally was. I was desperate. I was looking for a really nerdy boy that I could just destroy emotionally because I felt like shit on the inside. And yes, women do this, or at least I did this. I can't say all women. I did this. And so I would manipulate a lot of men to do what I wanted, right? I did that a lot. And so, but that came with a price, right? That came with the price of sacrificing my morals. It sacrificed my value system, sacrificed how I thought of myself, which I didn't think a lot of. And so I found my victim of choice, right? And I flirted a lot with this guy, and I always took all these guys, because I used to do Plenty of Fish and shit like that when it was cool, and I would bring all these guys to this bar down south in Florida to meet me, on ladies' nights, of course, because I drank for free. I didn't have to pay for it, and I could drink as much as I wanted, and they had 4 bars that I could just hop to. Especially if I was telling my friends, like, please don't let me drink after 3 drinks. And then I would just go to the other bars and drink, and then return to them and look like I wasn't drinking. That was normal in my perspective back then. So I brought my husband there, and he forgot his ID. And on our way home, because I was pissed, I was like, of course we're going back. We're going to get in and come back. It was a 45-minute drive. But I was determined to get back to ladies' night and bring this new victim to my this bar that I always brought all of the guys to, right? It was definitely a sign, because on the drive there, Jason, sorry, I already outed him. My husband told me that he was in recovery, and that he was a recovering drug addict, alcoholic. And I was like, oh, okay. You would think that'd be a red flag, but that was a green flag for me. That was full green, and not in a good way. I loved fixing people. Every person that I dated was very toxic and very just the representation of who I was, right, at that time. I attracted all the people that I was. And so I thank God every day, because I knew that God intervened in my life and brought my husband to me, because he changed my life. And even though I didn't get sober when I met him, right, we were together for 3 years until I finally got sober, bless his fucking heart, because I was very obnoxious. I was not a fun drunk. I was very obnoxious. I was crude. I thought I was funny, and I wasn't, and I thought I was super cute and loud, way more loud. And I actually outcackle my husband's family too, and they're all Italian and Polish. So, just to brag a little bit. And when I finally caved and got sober, it was at a point where once a month, I was craving chaos. I was so miserable every day for 3 years. I would constantly complain or pick fights or try to induce some sort of chaos in our relationship, because I was so dry. It's not that I didn't drink, I did, but I also was trying to be respectful of my husband's recovery at the time, right? Because the first thing he told me was, my recovery comes first and you come second. And I told him, bet, which means challenge accepted, in normal terms. And and he kept his promise. He did, and he stayed sober, and he was very patient with me. And I went to his anniversary meetings, and I loved AA. I loved going to his anniversaries. I felt like I was at home there. Not only I do find people who are sick very fascinating, but I wasn't there dissecting them or anything, but I definitely was there, and I really enjoyed their stories, but I wasn't relating, because a lot of the stories were about oh, I lost my family and I lost my job, and the typical things that you hear in AA, and I didn't think that there was people like me that still had a job, finished college, was still doing all the stuff. Because the recovery in South Florida, there's a lot of rehabs there. Everybody's a newcomer for the most part. Most of them are dual diagnosed. And so the revolving door of recovery in the state of Florida is, it's never ending. There's a surplus of sponsees constantly, a number of people who die every day, that and it's really hard, and it's very fast life down in Florida. So, and I'll get to that when I kind of get to the point where I'm here in Raleigh. But when I did finally get sober, I went to therapy, and I had to have a therapist pretty much tell me, why don't you try it? So I already knew how to do it. I knew women with men, no. Women with the women, men with the men, and so I knew the slogans, and I don't know why quotation mark, they are the slogans. I knew what I was supposed to do, so I went with a woman that I've met through Jason in the program for 3 years, and she took me to a women's meeting, And I picked up a medallion that day. I'm just one of those people that's like all in or nothing. I don't do like gray areas. Like it's either black or white for me. Like I just don't like fucking around. So once I make a decision, I fucking do it, and I do it hard. And I like picked up a medallion. I found my sponsor at the time, and she wasn't the right sponsor for me, because 4 months in, I realized this, and I was in my pink cloud. And even though I didn't even get to do any of the steps, I was already feeling this spiritual high of being sober and feeling like I belonged somewhere finally. Like I felt like I found my home. Like I felt like it was the place that I belonged. Like I belonged there, and I felt so welcomed and so loved. Like this women's home group, which was my home group for most of my sobriety, they loved me so much. Like they loved me unconditionally. And if it wasn't for people like greeting me at the door, like I don't think I would have stayed, right? The greeters, I feel like, are the most important part of keeping people to stay, because it makes people feel welcomed. And I eventually did pick the sponsor that I really did like from that home group. I just couldn't wait for her to come back from her trip in Europe. I like instant gratification. I don't like waiting. So I did get the sponsor I want, and she was a woman that I knew deep down, like in my gut, like, and I always believe that's my like higher power speaking to me, is my intuition. And she was the woman that I wanted to be like, and still want to be like, and we are now really great friends, and I like love her like a second mom. Like she really mothered me when I needed it. Because my mom's not emotionally available, and she's still not. Neither is my dad, right? But I got sober. I did all my steps. It took me 1.5 years to do my steps, because I'm a procrastinator. And I like working, and I like working multiple jobs, and I liked going to school, and I liked saying that I wasn't available, and I like doing all these things. And I still stay sober, right? I still went to meetings. That's why I always just say meeting makers make meetings. Doesn't mean they're healthy. But I finally finished my steps, and I was eager to finish them, but it just took me a while. But it doesn't matter. Anyways, so I did finish them, and I white-knuckled sobriety until my 4th year. I did not want to let go of my shortcomings. I loved them. I thought they were my entire identity. Like, I based my whole life as this person. Like, letting go of character shortcomings for me was so hard, because everything, like, I lived as that person until I was 24 years old. Like, that's a lot of time to really break down a lot of those walls. It takes time. It's not instant. At least it wasn't for me. I really had to work on it, and it took me burning a lot of bridges, making an asshole out of myself constantly. And I was sick of making amends to people in recovery sober. That really sucks, because there's no excuse, right? Your excuse is that you're an asshole sober and that you're not doing a good program, you know? That's your fucking excuse. And I got called out on it constantly, and I would tell people, fuck you, don't ever come to my house again. And my husband would suffer from that too, because those were our friends, mutual friends, right? And so I was isolating him because of my behaviors too, right? I had to see my part in this. So I finally joined a young people's group, and not a big thing, but like a young people meeting. And that changed everything for me, because I finally started getting sponsees. I started actually seeing the other side of the coin. I started really trying to change my behaviors, because I was really sick and tired of being sick and tired sober. Like I felt I didn't feel different, and I hated and was always resentful at hearing how different everybody felt when they got sober, and I didn't feel different. I was still acting and behaving like a teenage girl, right? And people were tired of me. They didn't want to hang out with me, and I was starting to feel lonely again in AA, and I didn't want that. I was desperate enough to change. And so slowly, because I knew realistically, people don't just always forgive you for your actions, right? You have to show that you're proving. It's what's the saying? It's like actions speak louder than words, right? And like I always live by that. And so I changed slowly. It was slowly. Like I can't say it was perfect, right? But I would catch myself. I would apologize. I would make things right. And the longer I stayed sober and the more involved I got with young people, the better I got, right? And I stayed into service. Like service really kept me in the rooms. And so by the time I reached past 5 years, I was already getting bored of AA. I was getting bored of hearing everybody say the same things, hearing all the speakers say the same shit. Like, I didn't fucking care. I would roll my eyes constantly, or, you know, not in the meeting, but like internally. I would try to be very respectful at the meetings and listen to the speakers and not be on my phone and just try to, because my service is being there for somebody else, right? Whether I share or not. And like, I try my best to be respectful, even if I don't relate, or I don't like the meeting, or whatever. Like Sarah Joe's there and I don't fucking like that person, right? Like I just try to be my best self. Some days I'm not spiritually fit, so, you know. But I got bored, but I kept staying because I kept wanting to be involved in service. So I stayed in service work and I kept sponsoring people. I kept doing, my higher power looked different throughout my entire sobriety, you know, like I really struggled with finding a higher power. Not that I grew up with a religion or anything like that. I kind of was able to find my own. I did a lot of the big book prayers, did the St. Francis prayer. I really liked that one. And that worked for me. I would hold crystals. I love crystals. I love rocks. And I would like hold a crystal and pray, right? Like I would do anything. I'm still like that. I like have, when people walk in my house, they're like, what religion are you? Like I have everything in my house because I'm superstitious. I was like, any negative shit, like just bring it all in. Like I have Catholic crosses, I have evil eyes, I got Judaism stuff in my house, witch bells, pagan stuff. I have everything in my house. I don't discriminate. I love all of it. And when I pray to my grandmother. She's somebody that I feel extremely connected to. She died when I was 2. I never met her. However, I look just like her. My dad said I sound just like her. And I have this spiritual connection with her where I have spoken to her on numerous occasions. And I cry like a baby. And that's who I talk to when I pray. So, and I feel my grandma with me all the time. She's my guardian angel. And so that's my spiritual shit. And I don't pray every day today, right? Like, I don't pray every day, but I'm grateful every day. I'm grateful every single day, even when hard shit happens. So 2024 sucked ass for me. It was a year of growth. That's what I'm calling it. It was a year of growth. It was a lot of change. It was a lot of growing. The beginning of the year, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. I didn't know what the hell was wrong with me. I never have been diagnosed with anything in my entire life except for ADHD, and I never took medication for any of this. And it got to the point where like my depression was so bad and I was so desperate to feel better that I got diagnosed and I got meds. Like I'm on Wellbutrin and I still take that shit every day. I'm too scared to not do it. It makes me feel normal. It makes me feel like myself again. Like I don't feel so tired. I love it. And so I had that happen. Then my husband, who was going to have 13 years sober this year, relapsed in May. And that was fucking devastating. Not in that fact that he relapsed, but my ego was crushed. Like I did not realize how much of a high horse I had for our sobriety time as a couple, right? Like, I was like, oh yeah, we're like the epitome of a perfect AA couple, you know, like we have so much time and we're young and we're great and that. And I reveled in that, and I didn't realize until he relapsed and how mortified and embarrassed I was, and more than him. And it, like, I mean, it was obviously very scary, because he came back a different person. We did find out later that, because he relapsed in Africa when he went on a trip, and we ended up finding out that the malaria pills that he was taking actually can cause psychosis relapse, and he had a bipolar 1 episode relapse in Africa. And so he was having delusions and manic episodes in Africa, and ended up causing him to relapse because he was in so much pain and suffering. And he takes a lot of responsibility for that. But it did bring us a lot of relief to know why, right? It was a lot of why did this happen, because everything was really great beforehand. So it was really touch and go. The stability I relied on a lot, which I really need in my life today, stability. I have a hard time with change, but I accept it, because acceptance prayer, page 417, one of my favorites. I do take it, but I take it rough. And we were doing really great. And so, right at Thanksgiving, my husband was having another bipolar 1 episode break, which we didn't know at the time. We thought he was having depression, and then it turned into a lot of manic episodes. And I ended up having to, involuntarily commit my husband into a psychiatric facility, and he was non-compliant, and it was really fucking scary. And I did not expect this to happen. And I was really scared to tell people what was going on. The first time I was like, I should call the cops, and I was like, no, what are my neighbors gonna say? I'm like, you know what? Fuck my neighbors. I don't fucking care what my neighbors think of me. And I always tell myself, like, what would I tell somebody in the same situation, right? Like, I would tell them, call the freaking cops and get help. So the cops came to my house, and it was scary. I had friends. When I finally told people and asked for help, it didn't feel so scary and stressful anymore. Like, I was holding a lot of this in for the sake of my ego again and our relationship for 2 weeks, right? By myself. It was very lonely, and it was very exhausting. I was so tired. However, I did start a mafia romance series in that time frame, so thank you. I write a lot now, but it was really hard. And so I did have to give him like a pep talk while he was in the psychiatric facility. I said, look, the doctor called me. You either take them willingly, or they're going to take you to court and make you take them. And so he ended up taking them, and he felt better. And he got out Thursday before Christmas. And we had once he took them, he felt so much better. They diagnosed him with bipolar 1. Everything is normal, a new normal, right? So the point of this, of me telling you all of my dirty laundry, is that I'm not resentful at it. And the reason is I'm actually very grateful, because it showed me, because one of my biggest insecurities, because I don't work full time. I haven't worked since 2020. My husband works full time and takes care of me. I have a lot of like side business. Like, I'm an artist. I just live an artist poor lifestyle. And I started feeling very shitty about myself. Like, I don't provide for my family. What is my purpose? What do I do? Like, very artsy mentality, and refusing to want to work, right? I'm like, I don't want to work for an employer again. Yes. So going through this and having to like literally take over our finances for 2 weeks, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And so I had to like figure all my stuff out, and I felt so much better about myself, because like I realized, like, when push comes to shove, I will jump right back into it, right? Like, I really was so proud of myself. It gave me such a confidence boost to see what I was actually capable of when I really had to step up. And so now I do work. My husband has a part-time side business that I help him with now. So I do work now along with my writing. So author life is a new thing for me. I just started in 2023. I also taught myself how to paint in early recovery. And I used to teach painting classes at paint and sip facilities. I loved that job. It was so much fun. I still love painting. I have an art business that I still run. What else? I taught myself crocheting. I'm really big into hobbies. I think hobbies really help build self-esteem. It helps build character. It gave me a sense of purpose and direction throughout my sobriety. It gave me an outlet because when I was younger in 4th grade, an art teacher told me I wasn't that great. And I never wanted to touch another piece of art ever again. And, words really can affect children, right? They really can. And it really stuck with me because they didn't know what my life was like at home. My parents were definitely not supportive of art or anything that I did. So it really meant something to me when an art teacher told me I wasn't that great, or it was okay, or I wasn't getting any, well, you did a great job, you did the best you could, keep trying, I didn't understand that. And failure to me in my life was if you failed, you might as well give up because you're not going to ever be good at it. Because if you're not good at it the first time, then you're going to suck the rest of your life. Today, failure looks like, okay, I didn't do it the best this time, but I'm going to try again a different way and see how that works, right? I don't give up just because I'm not perfect the first time, because perfectionism isn't reality. I had to let go of perfectionism. It's not real, and it held me back a lot. What other cool life lessons did I learn? I mean, for the most part, I would say my biggest thing that I've really learned is that whether you say that you can or say that you can't, you're absolutely correct. And I use that with everything. Whether you say you're an artist or you're not an artist, you're absolutely right. Whether you say that you're good at something or not, you're absolutely correct. Whether you say this or you can apply that to anything. And today I never say that I'm not anything because I was never good at English. I can barely write English language properly. I am not good at sentence structure. I'm not good with words. I don't have a big vocabulary. I don't have those skills naturally because I didn't care about school, right? I wasn't good at that. But today I decided, I was I'm going to prove myself wrong and I'm going to write a whole ass book. I wrote 650 pages of a freaking book. And I now write all the time and I edit and my language skills have improved. I read all the time. I love reading now. And I always hated reading. And I was I'm not a reader. My entire life, even in my sobriety, I was I'm not a reader. And people are okay, whatever. And of course I'm not a reader because I said I'm not a reader. And now I'm a reader because I decided to change my mind. I decided that whether I say that I am or say that I'm not, I'm absolutely correct. I'm tired of getting in my own way. And so I don't put myself into a box. And I don't like when other people put me into a box. I'm very rebellious like that. And I don't know. I'm very grateful today. I'm grateful for all the experiences I've had in 2024. And going into 2025, I have no expectations, but I know that I'm going to be grateful regardless. So that's all I have to share.